So, did you figure out what the next portion of the puzzle is? And the answer is, it's a mirror 5 by 5 by 2. This and this are scrambled with each other. Now there are mirrored 5 by 5 by 2s out there. If anyone knows of any or sees any, let me know. Because right now we've got this matched up with these pieces here. But what we don't have it is matched up with this piece over here. So this has become a 5 by 5 by 5, a 5 by 5 by 2. Now this is not a mirror version, but really it doesn't matter at this point. It's really the same process. So what I have now is I basically have this situation. Now I believe this is a Trey Poom product, and he does incredibly good mods. By the way, if anyone has a 3D printed version of this that has, just like with this one, kind of symmetric looking cubes, let me know. So I'm looking for a mirror 3 by 3 by 2, and I'm sorry, 5 by 5 by 2, and a 5 by 5 by 2 3D printed proportional puzzle. Just looks better with a collection. Anyway, I'm gonna keep scrambling this up. Okay, there you go. Now, there is a little bit of a difference here, because what I have is just these edges here and these corners here, but we don't have any center pieces. So the solve of this, actually, it's not exactly like that because I don't have to worry about the centers. Centers are buried kind of in there, so we don't know where they're at. But I think by solving these centers, we solved what might pass as centers over here. But anyway, the centers are pretty easy. We have a center piece over here, which is white. I'm just gonna pop those in any way that I can. Put this here. Now, bear in mind, a 5 by 5 by 2, what kind of a cuboid is that? Well, a 5 by 5 by 2 is gonna be a domino, which means that when I go across here, I'm taking a parity, an odd layer parity, and moving it into an even layer parity so it doesn't shapeshift. So it's no shapeshifting. So by solving these, I'm just going to do sliding U techniques. Put it in on the left, slide it to the right, move it on the right, slide it back to the left, undo what you did on the left, slide it back to the right, undo it on the right. Okay, so we got our centers in, and now the question is putting these guys in, because that's going to show us how to put these guys in. So, 5 by 5 by 2 solve. Just one step up above the 5 by 5 by 1 solve. Totally different kind of a puzzle. So basically it's a matter of find kind of a dominant layer, and you can start moving those pieces in first. So here's a blue. This blue edge tells me that this yellow edge goes into here, this corner here rather, which means that just opposite that is going to be the green. So what I can do is just shift that in, and then I can move this edge here as well. Splat. Now, you can go ahead and put all the other edges in, but I like to do it one layer at a time. And putting these in is pretty easy. It's all just sliding U techniques. So I'm going to take every white that I see down here and move it up to its proper place here. So white and red edge, I'm just going to pop it into here, slide it to the left, 2R, or 2L rather, slide it back to the right, 2R from the middle here, slide it back here, and in that way, this is placed without messing up any of these. So yeah, this is sort of a easy, almost meditation that you can do, solving this, putting it in step by step, bit by bit, and really I'm just getting one layer out of the way. Okay, so any other whites here? Here's a white and blue. This white and blue is going to have a nice home over here. Middle 2R, slide it to the left, 2L, back to the right, 2R, back to the left, 2L. Now I'm going through this because I don't know if I've ever actually described a 5 by 5 by 2 before. Fun little quick solve. So let's move this guy in. Turn and turn. This one is orange. Now we're all building to the last layer. This is the easy part. Might there be something difficult with the final one? By the way, this is from a 5 by 5. Trey Poom took a 5 by 5 and just did some brilliant molding and cutting down. This is by a cut down method. There's also an expansion method. Cut down is where you cut everything down to where it needs to be. Expansion is where you keep adding expanded pieces, which kind of aesthetically looks better, but they tend to be much larger puzzles. So you can take a 5x5 and turn it into this, or just solve it like this. Okay, all right, here's a green and white. So it's all going to fall into place just by focusing on shifting it in from the bottom. Okay, so all these edges are reduced. Now we just move these corners in. So this green and red is going to go here. Turn, whoop, that's not green and red. This is green and red. So this comes into here, move it out of the way, double turn, move it back, and turn. Green and orange is going to come into here. So place it where you can do 2L, slide it to the right, 2R, slide it to the left, 2L, slide it back to the right, 2R. We've got one more, and our first layer is done. And turn. Okay, so you can see our first layer is done, and now all the pieces are where they need to be, but these aren't in. So why don't we do something similar with this? And I think it's a matter of putting all the centers in. It's going to be exactly the same way. It's a 5x5x2 mirror cube. So what belongs here? Well, these two belong here, and I can tell this belongs here as well. So I can actually move this to here and do a 2R. Move it to the left to get it out of the way. Do a 2L. Move it back here. 2R. Move it back here and 2L. And then we'll move it back here. And the neat thing about that is you're not going to disrupt these sides here at all. Okay, so this is in, and I can just keep doing that. What belongs up here? Well, let's just sort of sort it out here. Got all these three things here. Okay, so this looks pretty good here. Now I can do a little shortcut where I can take this whole thing, spin it up here, move this in, and then spin it back. So I was able to slide all that in. I suppose I could have done that here too if we had that. If all these were in and they were white, I could just spin that up, move it in, and spin it back down. So anyway, makes it shorter. How about up here? This belongs here. So I'm going to do the same shortcut. Move it up, spin it in, move it down. Okay, so this is in, this is in. I just need these two. That's these two over here. So why don't I move both in? So 1, 2, 1, 2. So I move both of these in. Slide it to the right. It'll take the whole thing out. Slide it back here. Move both of them down. Slide it back here. Both of them up. And first splat. Okay, so what we can see is we very quickly made short work of the centers. In terms of edges, well, let's see what belongs. Okay, what belongs over here? Not this one. Well, we can go to the one that comes out at us the most, which is this. So I'm just going to see which edges are going to find a home here. The one that I just moved back there, this one, nope, and that doesn't come out at me the most, it's this one. So this doesn't belong here, but let's find really large edges and see. How about this? Yep, this does. This does belong. And I can tell it's the correct one because this matches with the center over here. So move it down. On the left, slide it to the right. 2R, slide it back to the left. 2L, slide it back to the right. And whoop, this thing loves to move. 2L. Okay, slide it back, and as you can see, we have this in. Okay, That doesn't belong there. This belongs here, so I'm not going to move that. Now this might belong here, and it does. So I need to put this one in from whatever is up here, and that's going to be this guy here. So 2R, slide it to the left, 2L, slide it back to the right, 2R, slide it back to the left, 2L, slide it back. Okay, now that I got that out, I know that I put the one that belongs here up here. Could it be this one? Nope. It's here somewhere, so I'll find it eventually. Could it be this one? Yeah, well, I'm going to say no because this doesn't belong with this center. So I keep searching. U? Yeah, and this belongs with this center too. That matches up really well. 2R, slide it. 2L, slide it back. 2R, slide it. 2L, and we're good. Okay, so we're filling in this layer over here, and do we do it? Not yet. We've got this guy to go. And let's start filling some in. It's up here somewhere, so I'm just going to keep rotating it around until I find it. It's got to be this one. Is it? And I'm going to say yes, it is. So slide it down on the right. Let's see if we can move this up. Slide it to the left. Down on the left. Slide it back to the right. Back on the right. Oop, careful. It's its own undoing. And boom. Okay, so we got it. Now we have the equivalent of this. So now we got to deal with this side. So how are we going to do that? Well, we need algorithms to shuffle these guys around in terms of corners and whatnot. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing corner swaps because we have edges, and the edges have to be in the right place. It turns out this is good, and this is good. Probably just got lucky with that, but even if we didn't, there's no parity to this. So if these were swapped, then we just do edge swap. So it turns out we don't have to worry about that. These are just fine, which is interesting. But we need to reduce these guys over here. So what we would do is we would look for two of these corners, or well, they're going to function like corners. These are going to function like corners. We're going to look at these two terminal edges, which function like corners, and find two that are in, and we see it's these two. We're going to put that to the left. We're going to do an adjacent corner swap with these two acting as the corners, and that should get everything in, because it's going to swap these two, so the greens are going to be in, and then it's going to swap these two, so the blues and the yellows are going to be in. So watch what happens. These two are in. Now, even if this is not lined up right, it doesn't matter. If it were two oranges, or and they were both had the red in the center, it would still be the same thing. So 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. Whole puzzle turns 90 degrees counterclockwise. 2R, UI, 2R, U, 2R. Move it back. Okay, so what you're going to find is that all these are in, and that's really what I wanted to do. To be honest with you, I wasn't even looking for center placement, just corner placement. And the corners are all placed correctly. So now I'm going to get these centers in, well, these central edges in. Now you might think, oh, we have a parity, I've got to swap these two, but that's okay. There is no parity since it's 5 layer here, but you just have 2 layer here. So opposite edge swap, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R. So now all these are in, all these are in. Now for the corners, same thing. Look for 2 corners that are in, these 2. Then I'm going to do an adjacent corner swap, which will swap these 2, so the red will be here, and everything will be fine. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. Turn the puzzle. 2R, UI, 2R, U, 2R. So simply defining corners differently based on how deep I was doing the cut. So this deep cut, these both are corners, I just didn't care about these, and now this is the corner. So now just the same thing, opposite edge swap, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U. And we got it. So a nice, simple, satisfying solve. Let's do the same thing here. So what we're going to do is we have to find 2 edges that are in. These 2, in other words, 2 that match. Now we have the colors here to guide us, but we don't have that here. So what shapes? These 2 shapes look the same. So I'm going to hold that there and do an adjacent corner swap where I'm moving these as the corner. So 2R, U, it's just this layer, 2R, UI, 2R, then I do UI and D, then 2R, UI, 2R, U, 2R. This will come back, yeah, right there. So this will not affect any of these layers here. And what I'm looking for is to see if these all came in. So this is in, these are not, these are they? I don't think so. They're not. So here's the issue. Now the same thing could have happened here. Now remember when I did that, it did place all these corners. That didn't happen with this. And I think that's because when I corner swapped, this went to here, but that doesn't line up with this. It must be here. This lines up with this. What that means is this will line up with this over here. So I've got to swap these two edges. Well, they're centers, I guess, but in this I'm using them as edges. So 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U. Now, a couple things predictably happened. I created a placement parity here. It's actually really not a parity. It was just a placement issue here. But I need to keep in this configuration so that when I do that corner swap again, this little piece, this piece will line up with this over here. Now notice this matches with the center. If I move this here, this also matches with this center over here. So I know that now this has to be swapped. So I'm going to do that corner swap. And then after I do that, I can move the centers back and take this placement, this misplacement out. So let's do that again. I just had to move these centers around because otherwise I'll never get it to where all these corner centers are in, these corner edges, I guess, are in. So keeping in mind what I'm doing, that's going to be, now I suppose I could just do this. I could do that, but I sort of take this area out here. So I'm just going to bear in mind what I have to do. So that's going to be 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R, UI, D, 2R, UI, 2R, U, 2R. Okay, so what you see is that these match, these match, these match, and these match. But I got to get this misplacement out, and that's simply going to be by doing another adjacent corner swap. Oh, opposite corner swap. Doesn't really matter. Could be adjacent, could be opposite. We'll do opposite. So 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R, and it doesn't really matter. We can do another 2U, but it doesn't matter. Oh, I forgot to move this back. Okay, so what I need to do next is, now that I've got these in, is I have to move these center pieces in. And this is where parity is not a problem. So this is in, this is not, and this is not. So I'm going to move this to here with an opposite edge swap. Now by doing that, I'm going to create misplacement here too. We're not going to worry about that because then I have to swap it with this and I can get it back. Every edge swap causes misplacement. Corner swaps do not. 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U. Okay, so this is in. Don't let all this scare you. We're now going to do an adjacent corner swap, or edge swap rather, to get everything back and to swap these two. That's 2R, U, 2R, oops, U, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R, U, 2R, UI, and 2R. Okay, sometimes you just have to have faith that it's going to work. So now all these are reduced. So now I got to get the corners in. So if I find two corners that are in, I can discover that if I move these until they come about a place where they match up. This matches but with nothing else. This matches but with nothing else. Okay, so the two that are in aren't next to each other. So I'm just going to do an adjacent corner swap at a random location. 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R, UI, D, 2R, UI, 2R, U, 2R, and this moves back. Okay, so now I find the two that are in. I can see this is in over here. So by doing that corner swap, if two are in but they're across from each other, doing a random corner swap will reconfigure it so that the two that are in will be next to each other. I'll just get this into an area right here. Okay, so this is all in. Now I just have to corner swap these two. So 2R, just with this layer, U, 2R, UI, 2R, UI, D, just this layer, 2R, UI, 2R, U, 2R, this moves back. So this is a 5 by 5 by 2 inside the puzzle that we've already seen. And with everything that we're doing, it gets everything surrounding our 5 by 5 by 2 back. So there's no parity issues there. So none of these centers are in. This one belongs where? Right there. Okay, so we're going to do an opposite edge swap here. 2R, 2U, 2R, well this is the corner now, 2U, and 2R, 2U. Okay, this is in. Don't worry about the misplacement over here. And now we have to start rotating these guys. So what goes where? Okay, so these two have to swap, just like this. Now, I can foresee a possible problem. And we're going to get to that when we get to it. 2R, U, 2R, U, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. Okay, so here's an interesting situation. It got back, but these centers are still out. By the way, notice that with complex puzzles like this, if something is a little off its orientation, because you got all these pieces, it might be hard to move. I mean, that corner cut pretty well. You can see that corner cut here a little bit. Sometimes people use magnets, where they put in a magnet here and a magnet here. So to get it aligned, there's a little click, and it holds it into place. So oftentimes with puzzles like this, by putting little magnets, when I'm sort of struggling to turn and it's not quite doing it because I got multiple places that are aligned, if I just put it here, you can hear a click and it holds it in place. So what am I going to do about this? This is a little bit of a problem, right? How am I going to get these guys in and not cause a parity issue? And that's my question for you. Because in my 5 by 5 by 2, when I had that situation, remember, these two had to be swapped, so I just did it. I did an opposite edge swap, but it didn't cause any parity anywhere else. This one, I've got the surrounding puzzle to deal with. Doing that same situation, putting these two in, that's going to create parity over here. So what am I to do? So here's an example. I'll go 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U. And you can see it did put all of this in. This entire side and this entire side is correct, but now we've messed up the rest of our puzzle. If I go like this, you can see what the issue is. The issue is when I turned it like that, now these edges are out. So what I want to do next is I want to swap these two edges. And what I'm going to do is, I guess it's not exactly like a 5 by 5 by 2 solve. I'm going to do a kind of an algorithm that swaps these two. This to here, these two swap, and these two swap. It's what I call the URF algorithm. And what that is, and this works when you have two that are out like this, two sets. It's, you go 2U, 2R, 2F, and then a deep 2U and a superficial 2U. Then reverse it with the 2F, 2R, 2U, and it will fix that misplacement. It's not a parity, it's a misplacement. Now I could have done the same thing here, but there's really no need. There's no surrounding puzzle to worry about. So there it is. Twisty Tex's brilliant and inspired 5 by 5, 5 by 5 by 7 bump cube or 5 by 5 by 7 mirror cube. An absolute pleasure to solve, to turn. Any chance that I have of getting Twisty Tex's puzzles, I always take. He's an incredibly brilliant modifier and does, for very complex puzzles that are so playable that they even bypass much of what you're going to see with mass-produced. So keep on going, Twisty Techs, and I really appreciate your patience with me with this puzzle. I actually held on to it for quite a while until I had an opportunity to use it. I promise it shall never be that long again, so it doesn't dissuade you from sending any other puzzles here. But there you have it, and this is based on the family of puzzles that it comes from. So all is well, and these are all the different kinds of puzzles that you need to know. This puzzle is actually a combination of all these kind of puzzles here, which makes it such a joy to solve. So you get your 5x5 fix, your 3x3 fix, and your 5x5 by 2 fix as well. Thanks for watching, and thank you, Twisty Techs.